Hey, welcome to this episode of the True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Hunt a Killer, for sponsoring this episode. Hunt a Killer is an immersive murder mystery game told over the course of 6 episodes or boxes. Each box is filled with different clues and physical items such as autopsy reports, witness statements, and more. You use these clues to solve the ongoing murder mystery, and in the final episode, you'll be able to name and catch the killer. Right now, you can use the promo code TCNS for 20% off your first box. Just go to huntakiller.com and input the promo code TCNS for 20% off your first purchase. And now let's get back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. I'm your host, Larry Leese. After reading about true crime stories, I condense all the content and bring you valuable information. To stay up to date with our content, check out Twitter at TrueCrimeNS and check out our Instagram at True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. Links will be in the description. Today we're discussing the cold case file of the murder of Bugsy Siegel, one of Las Vegas's most well-known icons. The unsolved murder of Bugsy Siegel. Unsolved crimes are always awful. Imagine losing a loved one by a criminal who was probably out there doing horrible things to other people. Imagine not knowing how exactly your loved one died, or even who killed them. Unsolved crimes are always an unbearable pain to family and friends. I bring unsolved crimes to this podcast to raise awareness and show to people that they are real and people do get hurt. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the unsolved murder of Bugsy Siegel. What happened? Who was involved? What information do we have about it? Stay with me until the end, and let's break down this case. To get started, we must say that Bugsy was a criminal. Most people say criminals should end up dead. Well, the way I see it, we shouldn't wish bad things to others. We should wish that justice plays the correct role and punishes criminals, according to what the law says. With no judgment, just facts, let's get into the story. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel was born in Brooklyn on February 28, 1906. He wasn't a serial killer himself, but he was a dangerous criminal that a lot of people knew and feared. Like most killers we know, Bugsy was very much influenced by his surroundings. With the historical violence of Brooklyn, Bugsy ended up meeting some bad influences in his neighbor, where he eventually became a hood. After a few years being a hood, he later on graduated to the mafia. Bugsy was well known for being a very violent person, capable of doing any crazy action that the mafia asked him to. Didn't matter what, he was always willing to get the job done. After getting deep into the criminal world, he was involved in many crazy events of pure violence. Let's look at just one example. After a serious bombing, he got injured and had to go to the hospital. After getting the basic treatment and being stable, Bugsy sneaked out of the hospital, made his associates find out about the suspect, drive him to the suspect's house. They broke into the house and shot the suspect to death. Then they drove back to the hospital, and people would only know this story years later. Prohibition was a clear business opportunity for Bugsy. He formed a partnership with Mayor Lansky, an organized crime syndicate that sold liquor. He was a violent criminal, but he was also a businessman. Later on, they decided to expand the business to gambling, prostitution, and murder for hire. And that's what things got a bit more intense and dangerous. They decided to expand their territory in the early 40s, so they partnered up with Lucky Luciano and decided to send Bugsy to California to take control of the gambling business. Right when he got to New York, he faced an issue with Jack Dragna, the man who controlled a very lucrative wire business in the area. Bugsy threatened him until he gave up the business and allowed him to have the territory. After that, they went all into the business, funding the casino with over $1 million. Greed took over his mind, and all he could think was money. However, some bad financial decisions made him lose most of his money, and that's when he started to lose his influence and protection from threats. He started taking other people's parts of profits and started building more and more enemies, which made it very hard to point a suspect to his murder. Speaking of murder, Bugsy murder was quick and simple with little to no evidence. On June 20th, 1947, Bugsy was shot to death at his girlfriend's home in Beverly Hills. It has long been the tradition in history that the order for the hit came from Lansky and Luciano. However, since his murder, there's been speculation that Bugsy was possibly taken out by other people who wanted him dead. Since they were so deep into the criminal world, and basically everyone involved in his life were criminals, no evidence was left, no witnesses came forward. It makes it even hard to bring suspects to the table, because he did harm so many people. That's a wrap for today's story. This has been True Crime Never Sleeps podcast, here to bring you the best stories full of details and knowledge. Once again, follow us on Twitter at TrueCrimeNS. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can also find us on iHeartRadio. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more cases that we discuss. Check out these videos that are over here. Check out the Murder Monday videos up there. Let us know what you think. Leave a comment in the section below. And we'll see you next week.